I still remember the day my world shifted so quietly that I didn't even hear the sound of it breaking. It all began with a single text message. You'd think after 14 years of devotion, loyalty, and sacrifice, there will be a proper goodbye. But no. Just a few words on a bright Sunday morning. We don't need you anymore, Sarah. Please stop interfering in our lives. Those words didn't just sting, they hollowed me out. For a moment, I couldn't even breathe. I stared at my phone, my reflection trembling on the screen, my heart pounding in my ears. It felt unreal, like someone had mistaken me for another woman, some stranger. But it wasn't a mistake. The names were there, Tom and Linda, the same people I stood by for 14 long years. I had paid their rent when they were drowning in debt. I had covered their hospital bills when Linda almost lost her life. I'd even funded their vacations because I thought maybe, just maybe, a little happiness would heal their pain. And now, this, a cold message, cutting me off like I was nothing. That moment froze inside me. My fingers trembled as I scrolled through old pictures, birthdays, dinners, little weekend trips. There we were, laughing like family. How could laughter turn into this kind of silence? I wanted to believe it was some kind of misunderstanding. Maybe Linda was upset. Maybe Tom had said something out of anger. I even whispered to myself, they wouldn't do this. Not them. But a tiny voice deep inside me whispered back, they already have. The tears came quietly, the kind that burn more than they fall. I remember sitting on the couch, the phone slipping from my hands as I pressed my face into the cushions to muffle the sobs. It wasn't just heartbreak, it was disbelief. Because betrayal doesn't arrive with thunder. It tiptoes in softly, disguised as love. But before I tell you how everything fell apart, you need to know how it began, how two strangers became my family, how kindness turned into chains, and how love became my biggest mistake. It was 14 years ago. I was 26, just another young woman trying to survive the chaos of city life. My apartment was tiny, one bedroom, a creaky window, and a kitchen that smelled of burnt toast half the time. But it was mine, my little corner of the world. Every morning, I'd walk to the bus stop with a cup of instant coffee and a folder full of marketing proposals. I worked at a small firm downtown. The pay wasn't much, but it gave me purpose. I used to dream about bigger things back then, owning a studio, starting a business, maybe traveling one day. And that's when I met them. Tom and Linda Baker. They just moved into the apartment next door. Tom was the kind of man who filled a room with noise, loud, charming, always telling stories. Linda was his opposite, quiet, warm, the kind of person whose smile could soften any day. She baked cookies every weekend. The smell of cinnamon and butter drifted through the hallway like an invitation to happiness. The first time we spoke was on a rainy evening. The power had gone out in the whole building, and I stepped out into the corridor with a candle, laughing at my own reflection on the dark windows. There they were sitting on the floor, sharing cold takeout noodles by flashlight. Want some? Tom asked, holding out the box with a grin. I hesitated for a moment, then laughed and sat down beside them. We talked for hours about movies, jobs, life, dreams. By the time the lights flickered back on, I felt like I'd known them forever. That night, something inside me shifted. Maybe it was loneliness, maybe it was trust, maybe both, but I found myself drawn to them. In a city full of strangers, they felt like home. Weeks passed, and our friendship grew. Linda would knock on my door with a plate of brownies whenever I worked late. Tom would drop by to fix small things around my apartment, refusing to take money for it. We spent weekends together, movies, late-night walks, coffee runs that lasted hours. They became my people. My chosen family. When I got my first big promotion, they celebrated like proud parents. Linda baked a chocolate cake and wrote, "To our star," on it with shaky icing. Tom toasted me with a cheap bottle of champagne, saying, "To Sarah, the only person in this city who believes in hard work and good hearts." I laughed so hard I cried. In that moment, I thought, this is it. These are the kind of friends who last forever. But forever, I would later learn, has an expiry date. One winter evening, about a year later, Tom knocked on my door. He looked pale, nervous, different. "Sarah, could we talk for a minute?" We sat on the couch, and he told me he lost his job. Linda's part-time bakery shifts barely covered groceries. Their rent was due in a week. He looked ashamed even saying it. I didn't even think twice. "Don't worry about it. I'll cover your rent for now. Just until you're back on your feet." He tried to refuse, but his voice cracked. "Sarah, you don't understand what this means to us." I smiled, brushing it off. "It's nothing. That's what friends are for." That night, when I handed him the check, he hugged me so tightly it almost hurt. Linda cried quietly in the kitchen. It felt beautiful, like I'd done something good, something that mattered. I couldn't have known then that this was how it would all begin. Not a friendship, but a lifetime of giving that would slowly, quietly take everything I had. It started so innocently that even now when I replay it in my mind, I can't find the exact moment it changed from kindness to captivity. After Tom lost his job, I paid their rent, just for 1 month. That's what I told myself. Just a little help, a temporary bridge until things got better. But months have a strange way of blending into years when you're helping someone you love. Tom found part-time work soon after, yet the bills never seemed to end. 1 month it was rent. Another month, the car broke down. Then Linda got sick again, and suddenly there were medical bills, prescriptions, and late payments. Each time I told myself, it's okay. They do the same for me. But deep down, a quiet unease began to grow. Linda would text me things like, "You're an angel, Sarah. We don't know what we'd do without you." Tom would call every weekend, thanking me for being the only real friend he had left. And those words, they meant something to me. I'd never been someone's hero before. It felt too good to be needed. I began visiting them more often, checking in like family. Linda would serve me tea in chipped floral cups, her eyes always warm but a little tired. Tom would talk endlessly about new business ideas, the ones that never quite happened. They make small promises. "Once we're stable, we'll pay you back. We'll make it right." And I believed them. I remember one evening vividly. The three of us were sitting on their tiny balcony under the weak yellow light, eating leftover pasta. Linda leaned her head on my shoulder and said, "You're not just our friends, Sarah. You're family now." Family. That word wrapped itself around my heart like a blanket. I didn't know it would soon become a chain. As the months passed, I started keeping a small notebook, every payment, every bill, every promise. Not because I didn't trust them, but because part of me needed proof that what I was doing had meaning. That this wasn't just charity, it was love. When my mother came to visit, she noticed the tension. She saw the unopened mail on my table, the stack of receipts, the tiredness in my face. She asked softly, "Are you sure they're not taking advantage of you?" I laughed it off. "Of course not, they're good people. They just need time." But she looked at me the way mothers do, seeing the truth before their children do. One night I overheard Tom on the phone, his voice low, careful. He was talking to someone about a new real estate opportunity. Something about using extra funds from a friend. He didn't know I was standing in the hallway frozen. When he saw me, he smiled quickly. "Oh, Sarah, didn't see you there. Just business stuff." And I forced a smile back, pretending it didn't sting. That was the first moment I felt the smallest crack in our friendship. A whisper inside me asked, "Do they still see you as Sarah? Or just as a solution?" But then Linda fell ill again. Her infection had worsened, and Tom called me in the middle of the night, his voice breaking. "They won't treat her without a deposit." "Please, Sarah. I don't have anyone else." Without hesitation, I opened my laptop and transferred the money, $2,300. He cried on the phone that night. "God bless you, Sarah. You saved her. You saved us." Those words became the rope that kept me tied. Every time I tried to step back, they remind me of that night, of what I'd done for them, of how I changed their lives. It's strange how easily love can turn into debt, how gratitude can start to feel like ownership. I began rearranging my own life around theirs. If Tom called, I picked up, no matter what I was doing. If Linda needed something, I left work early. I missed promotions, canceled plans, spent birthdays alone because they needed me. My friends from work started teasing me, calling me Mother Teresa. I laughed with them, pretending I didn't notice the pity in their eyes. Sometimes, late at night, I stare at my reflection and whisper, "You're doing the right thing, right?" But the answer never came. Years rolled by. The lines between their lives and mine blurred completely. They moved to a better apartment, the one with the balcony facing the park. Tom said it was temporary, that they moved back once they got settled. I helped them move. I paid the security deposit. Linda started her bakery soon after Sweet Haven. She said it was her dream since childhood. I gave her the money for the oven, for the logo design, even for the first batch of ingredients. She promised I'd get it back when business picked up. And every time I visited, she'd hug me and say, "You're the reason this dream came true." I smile, feeling proud, even though a part of me was exhausted. I didn't know then that I wasn't part of their dream at all. I was the fuel that kept it burning. Looking back, I can see the signs how slowly I disappeared from the center of my own life. My savings were shrinking. My friends had drifted away. But I told myself it was all worth it. Because one day, when everything got better, they'd look at me and say, "We couldn't have done this without you." And maybe that would make it all okay. But life has a way of revealing the truth when you least expect it. For me, it would come in the form of a single text message called Final, Merciless. A message that would destroy everything I thought I knew about love, loyalty, and friendship. The months became years. Somewhere between promises and payments, between laughter and lies, 14 years slipped away. I didn't even notice how much of my life I had handed over to them. It started with kindness. It ended with exhaustion. Every time Tom or Linda called, there was a new reason, a new crisis, a new way to make me feel needed. At first, I didn't question it. I wanted to help. I wanted to believe that good people never regret giving. When their electricity was cut off one winter, I paid the bill. When their old car broke down, I lent them money to buy another one. When Tom's new business idea almost took off, I covered his last-minute investment. Every time he'd swear, "Sarah, you'll get it all back." I promise. Promises became our currency. I didn't realize how worthless they were until later. Linda's health was fragile, and every few months there was another emergency. I get calls in the middle of the night, her voice trembling through tears. "I hate asking you again, Sarah, but they won't let us leave the hospital until we pay." And I say the same words every time. "Don't worry. I've got it." I never told her how I'd begun skipping my own bills to cover theirs. I never mentioned that I was living off instant noodles some weeks because I drained my savings for her medication. It didn't matter. They were family. That's what I told myself. They always thanked me. They always cried. They always promised. And every time they said, "We'll make it up to you," I believed them, because believing felt easier than facing the truth. I remember one spring afternoon. I'd gone to visit Linda after her recovery. She was standing in her new bakery, beaming, flour dusted across her cheeks like a badge of pride. She showed me around, pointing at the counters, the shelves, the display case she'd bought with the money I sent. "All this," she said, "exists because of you." I smiled and said, "I'm just happy to see you smiling again." She hugged me tightly, but as she did, I noticed something. On the wall behind her, there was a photo, her and Tom, cutting the ribbon at the bakery opening. A small gold plate beneath it read, "Founded by Tom and Linda Baker." My name wasn't there, not even a thank you. It didn't sting right away. I told myself it didn't matter. I didn't help them for recognition. I helped because I loved them. But somewhere deep down, a small voice whispered, "You've been erased." Over time, I began to notice little changes. They stopped inviting me to dinners as often. When I texted, replies took hours. When I called, sometimes they didn't answer. I told myself they were busy. The bakery was doing well. Tom's business was growing. I was proud of them, or at least I tried to be. Still, I was always there when they needed something. When Tom wanted new marketing designs for his company, I made them. When Linda needed a short-term loan for bakery expansion, I gave it. I gave and gave and gave, until giving became the only thing I knew how to do. The pattern was so subtle I didn't even see it happening. I was no longer a friend or family, I was their backup plan. Their invisible safety net. Sometimes, when I came home late from work, I sit on the edge of my bed and open my old financial notebook. The numbers stared back at me like ghosts. Thousands gone, all in their names. Rent, $1,200. Medical, $2,300. Car, $1,500. Business, $8,000. Bakery setup, $5,000. Birthday gifts, vacations, emergencies. The list went on and on. I never counted the total. I was afraid to. My mother stopped asking about them. She'd given up trying to make me see what she already knew. Some people love you only when they need you, she'd said once, and I'd gotten angry. You don't know them, Mom. They're not like that. But they were. And I was too blinded by love to see it. I remember once, on my birthday, I waited for their call all day. I'd helped plan their anniversaries, birthdays, every milestone. But that day there was nothing. No message. No visit. Nothing. At 11:47 p.m. my phone buzzed. It was a text from Tom. Sorry, Sarah, been busy all day. Hope you had a good one. That was it. No heart emoji. No call, just words. I smiled anyway, typing back. It's okay. Hope you guys are doing well. Because even when they forgot me, I couldn't forget them. 14 years passed like that, me holding the thread of loyalty while they pulled it tighter around my neck. People at work noticed how tired I looked. You're always helping others, one colleague said. When do you help yourself? I laughed it off, but later that night, those words wouldn't leave my head. When I finally looked at myself in the mirror, I didn't recognize the woman staring back. Her eyes looked older. Her smile looked forced. She wasn't the same Sarah who'd once believed in the goodness of people. But I wasn't ready to let go, not yet. I told myself that one day they'd surprise me, repay me, thank me, maybe even tell the world what I meant to them. That day would never come. Because one morning, out of nowhere, my phone buzzed. A single message appeared on the screen. It was from Linda. And when I opened it, the world I had built for 14 years collapsed in silence. That morning felt strangely peaceful. The kind of quiet that makes you believe the world is gentle. Sunlight streamed through my window, warm and soft, and I remember thinking I might bake something for Linda that afternoon. A chocolate loaf maybe, the kind she loved with her coffee. I had no idea my whole life was about to shift with the buzz of a single text. I was standing by the sink, watering a small potted plant I kept alive for years. My phone vibrated on the counter. I didn't rush to check it. Probably just an offer email or one of those bakery updates Linda liked to send when she launched a new flavor. I smiled to myself and reached for it casually. The smile didn't last. Sarah, please stop interfering in our lives. We don't need your help anymore. Don't text or call us again. At first, I thought my eyes were playing tricks on me. The words didn't make sense. They were too sharp, too cold, too final. I blinked, scrolled up, expecting context, maybe a joke, a misunderstanding, something. But there was nothing, no explanation. Just those words sitting there like stones on my chest. I stared at the screen for what felt like hours. Then I whispered, No. No, this isn't real. I typed back, my fingers trembling. Linda, what happened? Did I say something wrong? Please, just talk to me. The message didn't deliver. The tiny gray circle stayed empty. I tried again. Same thing. Then I called her. It rang once and went silent. I tried Tom. Straight to voicemail. My heart dropped. Blocked. The room suddenly felt smaller, like the air had been sucked out of it. I sank into a chair, clutching my phone like it could somehow explain itself. I read the message again and again, as if repetition could make it softer, but it never did. The words cut deeper each time. 14 years. 14 years of showing up, helping, saving, believing. And this was how it ended. I scrolled through our old messages, birthdays, thank yous, the hundreds of times they'd said, "We owe you our life." The little emojis Linda used when she sent photos of new cakes. Tom's late-night texts asking for advice or reassurance. All of it suddenly felt fake. Tears blurred the screen. My breath came in uneven gasps. I stood up too fast, pacing across the kitchen floor, whispering to myself, "They didn't mean it. It's a mistake. They can't mean it." I called again. No answer. I messaged Tom's work number. Nothing. The silence was deafening. I sat on the couch, staring at the blank wall opposite me, my mind racing through every memory, every smile, every word of gratitude they'd ever given me. Were they pretending all along? Was I really so blind? For a long time I didn't move. I just sat there, phone in hand, my thumb brushing over the cold screen. The morning sunlight had shifted, spilling across the floor, but I didn't see it anymore. Everything felt drained of color. It's strange how quickly your world can shrink. One message, and suddenly everything you've built feels meaningless. I wanted to scream. I wanted to drive to their apartment, demand an explanation. But another part of me was too numb to move. Too scared to know the truth. Hours passed like minutes. The light outside turned golden, then gray. The quiet hum of the fridge was the only sound in the room. I hadn't eaten, hadn't changed, hadn't even noticed that the plant I'd been watering was now drowning in the overflow. At some point, I opened my gallery. Photo after photo, our vacations, our dinners, our stupid little traditions. Linda's hand holding mine when she was sick. Tom standing beside me with a barbecue grill, laughing so loud I could still hear it in my head. I zoomed in on our smiles. They looked so real, too real. I pressed my forehead against the phone and whispered, "Why?" over and over again. The day faded into night. I didn't turn on the lights. I just sat in the dim glow of the street lamp outside, the phone still in my lap. My reflection stared back at me from the black screen, eyes red, face hollow. I tried to remember the last time they said thank you and meant it. The last time they reached out first. The last time I didn't have to fix something for them. I couldn't. By midnight, I felt something inside me begin to crack. The kind of break you can't hear but you can feel. My body was heavy, but my chest felt empty. I picked up my phone again and scrolled back to the top of the chat, to the very first message Linda had ever sent me years ago. "Hi neighbor. Thank you for lending us your candle. We owe you cookies." I laughed softly through the tears. "You owed me more than cookies," I whispered. The irony stung. That single candle was the start of everything. The first light in a friendship that would later burn me alive. When the clock hit 3 a.m., I stood by the window. The street outside was quiet. The city slept peacefully, unaware that someone's whole world had just fallen apart. A cold breeze slipped through the crack in the glass, brushing against my face. I closed my eyes and let it sting. My heart whispered questions I couldn't answer. Why did I give so much? Why didn't they care? How could they throw me away so easily? I waited for the wind to answer, but it didn't. That night, for the first time in years, I realized how utterly alone I was. And in that stillness, somewhere between grief and disbelief, a quiet thought surfaced. One that scared me and strengthened me at the same time. Maybe they didn't just take my money. Maybe they took the part of me that believed in people. Days passed, but the silence didn't. It grew heavier, thicker, like a fog that refused to lift. Every morning, I woke up and checked my phone, hoping for a text that said it was all a mistake. Nothing. Every night, I fell asleep with my phone in my hand, like a woman clinging to a ghost. 3 weeks later, it happened. I was at my desk, half working, half drifting, when my phone buzzed. It was my friend Emma. She sent me a photo with a short message. "Sarah, is this them?" I opened it and time stopped. The photo showed Tom and Linda, smiling, laughing, surrounded by people I didn't recognize. The background was beautiful, golden lights, champagne glasses, a new house behind them with a giant banner. "Welcome to our new home." I blinked, my throat tightening. My eyes darted to the corner of the image where the address was printed on the invitation. It was in one of the nicest neighborhoods in the city. A house. Their house. My stomach twisted. The bakery, the car, the vacations. The endless loans and emergencies. I thought they were drowning, but they were building. And they'd built it all with my hands. I zoomed in on the picture, tracing their smiles with my finger. They looked happy, free. Linda was wearing a new dress, a color she once told me she couldn't afford. Tom was holding a glass of wine, surrounded by business colleagues, the kind of crowd that screams success, and not one trace of me anywhere. I sat there frozen, staring at that photo, while my coffee went cold beside me. The betrayal didn't come as a bang, it came as a whisper that sank into my bones. I scrolled through their social media. There it was, post after post. Grateful for this new chapter. Dreams really do come true. Hundreds of comments congratulating them. Not one mention of the person who had paid for every brick, every smile, every dream. Something inside me snapped, but not in anger, in clarity. For the first time, I saw them for what they were. Users. Manipulators. The people I thought were family had treated me like an endless wallet with feelings attached. I felt sick, literally sick. My hands were shaking so badly that I dropped my phone. I remember whispering to myself, "No, this can't be right. They wouldn't do this to me." But I knew they would. They already had. That night I couldn't breathe. I opened my laptop and pulled up my old records, my bank statements, the notebook I kept for years. Every payment, every receipt, every transfer, I read them one by one month of rent. Another month of groceries, hospital bills, business loans, bakery equipment. Page after page, line after line. The numbers piled up like weights on my chest. When I finished, I did the math. $97,000. That's how much I had given them. $97,000. I said it out loud like maybe hearing it would make it sound smaller. It didn't. That number hung in the air like a ghost, whispering all the things I didn't want to admit. That I'd been foolish. That I'd been blind. That I'd been nothing more than a convenience to them. I opened Linda's bakery website. Sweet Haven. Her dream come true. The About page said, founded by Tom and Linda Baker, a husband and wife team driven by passion and perseverance. My heart clenched. At the bottom of the page, there was a section that said, investors and supporters. They had listed Tom's cousin, not me, not once. Not anywhere. I stared at the screen until the letters blurred. I didn't cry this time. The tears had dried somewhere between disbelief and rage. It was like something inside me turned to stone. They hadn't just betrayed me. They'd erased me. They'd taken my kindness, my trust, my money, my years, and rewritten the story without me in it. As if I'd never existed. And the cruelest part? They didn't even have the decency to say thank you before throwing me away. That night, I sat on the floor of my apartment, surrounded by receipts and memories. My phone was beside me, still showing their smiling faces. I whispered to myself, "You built them alive, Sarah. You gave them everything. And they gave you silence." The anger came slowly, quietly, like a storm forming far away on the horizon. Not the kind of rage that screams. The kind that plans. Because pain has two paths, destruction or awakening. And I was done being destroyed. For days I couldn't eat, I couldn't sleep. It was like I had forgotten how to exist without them. Every corner of my apartment felt haunted by their presence, the couch where Linda once sat laughing, the shelf where Tom's gift mug still rested, the photo frame I never had the courage to throw away. I thought grief only came after losing someone to death, but I was wrong. Grief also comes when the living choose to disappear from your life. When people you once called family pretend you never existed. I wake up every morning with that same heaviness in my chest, the kind that makes even breathing feel like effort. My phone stays silent, but I still checked it every few minutes, as if hope could resurrect something that had already died. At work, I smiled. I laughed. I made jokes. But the moment I came home, the mask fell apart. I sit on the floor in the dark, surrounded by receipts and memories, trying to count where I gone wrong. Was I too kind? Too naive? Too desperate to be loved? The truth hurt more than I could admit. I wasn't just angry at them. I was angry at myself, angry that I ignored the red flags, angry that I mistook manipulation for love, angry that I gave so much of my life to people who only saw my worth in dollars and devotion. For 2 weeks, I barely left the house. My mother called, worried. I didn't pick up. Friends texted me to hang out. I ignored them. The world outside moved on, but I couldn't. One night, I caught my reflection in the mirror. Pale skin, tired eyes, a woman I barely recognized. I whispered to her, "You're stronger than this." But even my own voice didn't sound convincing. And then, something shifted. It happened so quietly I almost missed it. I was sitting at the dining table with my laptop open, staring at the same old transaction history I'd memorized by heart. Line after line of generosity. Line after line of proof. That's when a new thought whispered through the fog. They took everything from you. But they also showed you who you are. I leaned back in my chair, breathing deeply for the first time in days. Maybe this wasn't the end. Maybe this was the beginning of a version of me who finally saw the world for what it was, not through blind trust, but through clarity. I got up and started cleaning. The kind of cleaning that isn't about tidying up, it's about reclaiming space. I threw out old photos. I deleted messages. I packed a small box of everything they'd ever given me. By midnight, my apartment looked different, lighter, quieter, honest. I sat on the floor with that box in front of me. A part of me wanted to burn it, but another part said no. Keep it. You'll need reminders of what blind love costs. I put the box in the closet and closed the door. That door clicked like a sentence ending. That night, I didn't cry. For the first time, the silence in my room didn't feel like punishment. It felt like peace, but peace is dangerous. It gives you time to think. And when I started thinking, really thinking, I realized something else. They hadn't just hurt me emotionally. They'd built their success on my money, my effort, my name. They didn't deserve my tears anymore. They deserved exposure. That thought hit like lightning, sharp, clean, powerful. And in that instant, my heartbreak turned into focus. I wasn't going to destroy them out of hate. I was going to show the world who they really were, calmly, truthfully, completely. I started collecting things again, but not the way I used to. Not as a desperate friend trying to keep records. As a woman preparing for justice. Emails, screenshots, bank transfers, messages of gratitude. Every thank you they had ever sent became evidence. Every "you saved us" turned into a weapon. It wasn't revenge yet. It was truth gathering its courage. The night stretched on, and I didn't feel tired. For the first time in years, I wasn't crying over what I lost. I was planning what I'd reclaim. When I finally closed my laptop, I whispered to myself, "They think they ended my story." I smiled faintly. But they just gave me the reason to write a new one. And that's how it began, the quiet transformation of a broken heart into something unbreakable. I didn't plan revenge that night. It wasn't some dramatic movie moment with thunder and lightning and whispered vows of destruction. It began with silence, the kind that hides thought behind steady eyes. For weeks, I've been drowning in hurt. But now, for the first time, I felt something new: clarity. I didn't want to scream. I didn't want to beg. I wanted the truth to speak for me. I opened my laptop and started with what I knew best: facts. Tom's business had a public page, filled with smiling clients and success stories. Linda's Bakery, Sweet Haven, had a website and an Instagram filled with cupcakes and gratitude posts. Every caption said the same thing: dreams come true when you work hard and never give up. Work hard, never give up. I almost laughed. They forgot to add, and find someone to fund it for you. I went through old emails, screenshots, and bank transfers. Every transaction had its own memory attached. $1,200 for rent, $2,300 for hospital bills, $5,000 for bakery equipment, dozens of smaller payments. Beside each, I saved the message where they thanked me, promised repayment, sworn eternal loyalty. My computer screen filled with proof, not rage, not gossip, proof. For the first time, their lies were smaller than my truth. I spent nights compiling everything, a quiet kind of obsession: receipts, texts, photos. Days lined up like puzzle pieces, forming the picture I'd been too blind to see. When it was done, I stared at the folder on my desktop. It was labeled Sweet Haven, the real story. I didn't smile, I didn't cry, I just exhaled. Next, I wrote a message, not to them, but to the people who needed to see it. Before you support Sweet Haven Bakery, you should know how it was built. By someone they erased. I attached screenshots, bank transfers, voice messages. No exaggerations, no insults, just truth, raw and unpolished. I sent that email to the local business board, to a journalist friend who once ran a column about honest entrepreneurship, and to a few of Linda's brand partners. It was terrifying. Pressing send, my hand shook. But when the message went through, a strange calm washed over me. 2 days passed. Then, my phone started lighting up. First, the journalist called. She said, "Sarah, this is unbelievable. You have every receipt?" I said, "Every single one." She promised to verify everything and write the story, not out of pity, out of principle. A week later, it was published. The headline read, "The woman who funded a bakery and got erased." My story spread like wildfire. People shared it, debated it, felt it. The comments were filled with shock and anger. How could they do this? She deserves justice. We're boycotting Sweet Haven. The bakery's page turned into a storm of criticism. Their perfect 5-star rating started dropping, one review at a time. Tom's real estate clients began canceling meetings. People wanted to know the truth behind their success. They tried to fight back. Tom posted a long note, saying the story was misunderstood, that I was a friend with bitterness, but screenshots don't lie. And people know the difference between bitterness and betrayal. More news outlets picked it up. Suddenly, everyone in town knew their names, not as the couple who built a dream, but as the couple who built it on someone else's heart. I didn't feel joy. I didn't laugh. But I felt balance. The scale that had tilted for 14 years finally stood even. A few nights later, my phone buzzed again. Unknown number. The message said, "Sarah, please, can we talk?" I stared at it for a long time. Then I put the phone face down and walked away. They called again, then again. Different numbers, different messages. "You've ruined us. Please, we can explain. You don't understand what you've done." But I understood perfectly. For 14 years I'd been their lifeline. Now they had to learn how to breathe without me. Revenge isn't always loud. Sometimes it's quiet, a calm truth that doesn't shout, doesn't break anything, it simply exposes. The world doesn't always punish cruelty, but sometimes, when you tell the truth fearlessly, it does the job for you. I didn't block them. I didn't reply. I just let silence do what words never could. Because sometimes silence isn't weakness, it's justice with perfect timing. It had been months since I'd last heard their voices. By then, the storm had done its work. Their bakery had closed for renovations, though everyone knew the truth. Tom's business page had vanished, his investors gone silent. They had fallen apart, quietly, painfully, the same way they had broken me. I didn't feel triumph, just peace. A tired, still peace. I wasn't waiting for revenge anymore. I was living again, until one rainy evening, fate decided to test that peace. I was leaving the supermarket, umbrella in hand, bag swaying at my side when I heard someone call my name. Sarah! I froze. That voice, soft, trembling, familiar. I turned slowly. Linda was standing there in the rain, soaked to the bone. Her hair clung to her face, mascara streaked down her cheeks. Behind her, Tom stood a few steps back, looking nothing like the confident man I once admired. His shoulders were slumped, his eyes hollow. For a long moment, none of us spoke. The sound of the rain filled the silence between us, steady, heavy, unmerciful. Sarah, Linda said again, her voice cracking. Please. You have to listen. I didn't move. I just stood there under my umbrella, watching the water stream down her face. I didn't know if it was rain or tears. Part of me wanted to turn and walk away. Another part, the one that still remembered the laughter, the late nights, the promises, stayed. What do you want, Linda? I asked finally. My voice was calm, too calm. She flinched like it hurt. We made a mistake, she whispered. We didn't mean to hurt you. We were scared. Everything happened too fast. We thought. I cut her off softly. You thought what? Tom stepped forward, his voice shaking. We thought you'd take everything away if we told you we were doing better. We thought you'd expect something from us we couldn't give. I looked at them, these two people I had loved like family. They stood there, drenched, trembling, begging for mercy after taking everything from me. And all I could think was how small they looked. Take what away? I asked quietly. The money I gave you? The years I lost? My peace? You already took those. What else could I possibly take from you now? Linda sobbed harder. Please, Sarah, we're sorry. We'll pay you back. Every cent. Just stop all this. I stared at her for a long moment, the rain pattering softly against my umbrella. Her apology came too late, like trying to fix a house after it's already burned to ashes. Keep it, I said finally. Her crying stopped for a moment, confusion flickering across her face. Keep every cent, I continued. Consider it tuition for the lesson I had to learn. Tom frowned. What lesson? That love without limits destroys the one who gives it, I said. My voice was steady, low, almost kind. And that some people only understand loss when it finally knocks on their own door. Linda reached out as if to touch my hand, but I stepped back. Don't, I whispered. You lost that right a long time ago. They stood there, silent. The only sound was the rain and the distant hum of cars on the wet road. I took a deep breath, letting the air fill my lungs like freedom. For 14 years, I said slowly, I thought I was helping you. But now I see I was just feeding your comfort. You didn't want my help. You wanted my silence. Well, you got it. You'll have it for the rest of your lives. I turned and started walking away. My heels clicked softly against the wet pavement, the rain sliding down my coat. Behind me, I heard Linda's voice break one last time. Sarah, please. I stopped for just a second. Without turning around, I said, sometimes silence isn't anger, it's closure. Then I kept walking. I didn't look back. Not once. The rain fell harder, soaking the world clean, and for the first time, I didn't care if I got wet. Every drop felt like a piece of the past washing away. Revenge hadn't destroyed them. Truth had. And that was enough. It's been 3 years since that night in the rain. Sometimes it feels like a lifetime ago. Sometimes it feels like yesterday. I still pass the old bakery every now and then. The windows are dusty now, the sign faded, the inside empty except for a single table and a broken chair. I stop and look at it for a second, not with anger, not with sadness, just acknowledgement. A ghost of what once was. Tom and Linda moved away. No one really knows where. Some say they went to another city to start over. Maybe they did. Maybe they're still out there, chasing new dreams built on borrowed hearts. But I don't follow their story anymore. I finally learned that closure doesn't come from watching others fall. It comes from standing tall yourself. For a long time, I blamed myself for everything, for being too trusting, too soft, too hopeful. I thought kindness was a flaw, but I was wrong. Kindness isn't weakness. It's only dangerous when you give it to people who mistake it for currency. I rebuilt my life piece by piece. I found a new apartment, smaller but brighter. I started saving again, not for someone else's emergencies but for my own peace. I reconnected with old friends, traveled a little, learned to say no without guilt. The first time I did, it felt strange, then freeing. Some nights, when the world is quiet and my window is open, I still think about that message. Those 10 words that ended 14 years of love. And oddly enough, I'm grateful for them now. Because if they hadn't sent that text, I'd still be living in their shadow, calling sacrifice loyalty, mistaking dependence for love. Pain has a strange way of teaching lessons you can't learn any other way. It burns everything fake until only truth remains. And the truth is this: losing people who never valued you isn't loss. It's liberation. I no longer need anyone to validate my worth. I've learned that peace doesn't come from being needed. It comes from being whole. I give differently now. I still help, but I set boundaries. I still care, but I protect my energy. I still love, but never at the cost of myself. Sometimes, I sit by the window with a cup of tea, the same way I used to all those years ago. The city hums quietly outside, lights blinking like tiny reminders that life goes on. I breathe, deeply, softly, freely. If I could speak to the woman I was back then, the one who cried over her phone, who felt worthless because of a single message, I'd tell her this: you didn't lose them. You found yourself. Because that's the real ending of my story, not revenge, not pain, but rediscovery. Love without limits can become a cage. But once you break the lock, you realize you were never meant to live small. And when I look back now, I don't see a victim. I see a woman who gave too much, learned too much, and finally became enough for herself.